All right, Sam. Well, it's I don't know. I think it's been about a year since we last spoke, which was in the studio. Actually, this time we're obviously remote. How's everything been going?
Yeah, it's been going really well. It's been a very busy year. There's actually been lots of developments from a policy and a rules perspective when it comes to fee status. So, yeah, we've been keeping up with those and making sure we keep British and Irish expat families all around the world up to date with any changes.
Yeah, and I know when we sort of had a bit of a pre-call before getting on the podcast, and you were sort of saying that business is growing and growing, and more people are sort of using your services. Is that because of these changes, do you think, or is it because you're just sort of becoming more prominent in the expat space? Where do you think that's coming from?
Yeah, I think a bit of both because certainly we have been growing and we've been expanding and working with many different partners to get the message out there about fee status and home fee eligibility. So that's been a big thing for us, is raising that awareness for people to know that there is support out there for this issue and we can help them with this problem. So more and more people are learning about this with enough time to get that assistance and get that support before they apply to university. But also, we have seen that it is becoming tougher to get home fees. There has been changes that mean many more people run into problems with this. The big one was obviously Brexit. So it means that many people who live in Europe are now outside of that scope when it comes to home fees, getting those lower fees. So they
Yeah.
need to plan ahead and they need to look at how they can be eligible. So certainly we've seen that as a growing trend, that more people do need assistance because it's getting tougher. The rules are tightening up. The universities are making it harder. They're making their policies stricter as well.
Yeah, which always seems yeah, odd to me. I was talking with someone about it earlier today. You sort of in Europe and the UK, they're often making it harder and harder to do business, and pushing people away. In fact, you should do the opposite. You should make it easier and more affordable in these places to attract good quality talent. But we seem to have the wrong idea or the wrong government at the moment. I don't know which it is, but with one of the two.
Yeah, that's it. There's a bit of a conundrum in the UK in terms of funding for higher education because the universities are struggling for funding. So many are in deficit this year. They're saying that 40% of universities are in deficit. So they really need to make sure they, maximise their revenue from tuition fee income, and the government sometimes makes it tough for them to do this because for home students, there is a cap on what they can charge to those students. Currently, it's around £9,500 per year, but that cap has not really changed much for over 10 years. So universities have not been able to increase what they charge home students. But of course, they're facing lots of inflationary pressures over that time. And so in real terms, what they're charging students is much less than what they were
Yeah.
charging 10 years ago. Now, the government has recently made an announcement to say that the home tuition fees will be rising automatically from next year onwards, in line
Okay.
with inflation. And this is a big
Okay.
change. This is the first time that this has happened. So this is good news for the universities. They'll be happy to hear that they will be able to increase their tuition fees each year in line with the inflation. So they're at least not going backwards in
Yeah.
terms of what they are able to charge the home students. But the government has also floated the idea that they would link this to teaching quality. So there is a proposal from the government that if universities are not reaching a certain level or a certain standard with their teaching quality, they won't be able to charge the maximum amount. So they'll be restricted in what they can charge. So again, this could cause problems for some universities. It could limit what they're able to charge their home students. And this may again see them adjust their policies in this respect. So if they're not able to charge the maximum amount to home students, they might make it harder to get that home status,
Yeah.
especially for
Okay.
borderline cases like expatriate families living
Yeah.
outside of the UK. Again, that could be a negative for their chances of getting home fees. So all of these things kind of play a part in this big picture of tuition fees and what you're likely to pay when you apply to university.
Yeah, it's never as simple, is it, as just one thing. It's like the property market, there's so many different factors in play. And I think maybe just rewind, because I did an intro and sort of just explained who you are and what it is you do. And I think just to give a bit more context to that, I think it's good to have you on the podcast, because our podcast is, yes, it's about property, but it's also about sort of being an expat and living an expat life. And I think what you guys do is a big part of that, certainly for families that have been expats a long time, have brought kids up overseas and are now looking to send those children to UK universities. So, and I actually had a client text me recently and said, my son is going, I think he's 15, and they're in Bangkok, and obviously is thinking about UK university now. Could you send me the podcast link you did with Sam? And yeah, so why don't you sort of just explain a little bit about what it is exactly you do and your business, and how you help expats, so that people listening can go, okay, I see, what's going on here. It's not just a random Aussie guy having a chat about university fees.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I'm from UK Study Options. I'm head of global engagement there, and the company was founded in 2009. So we have over 15 years of experience now helping and supporting families from all around the world to apply to university in the UK. We are independent advisors, and we specialise in the fee status rules. So in the UK, we have the two levels of tuition fees: home fees and overseas fees. Now, the UK has quite unique rules, which makes it very complicated for people to understand sometimes whether they can be eligible for those home domestic fees. And this is where we come in, because we can really add clarity to the rules and to whether people will fit into those rules. It's not as simple as just having a British passport. There are also residency rules attached to that, and the universities are the ones who are responsible for assessing this. So each individual university in the UK will be making their own decisions about students who apply to their courses and whether they should charge them home or overseas fees. And because the rules are so complex and so technical, and there's a lot of grey area in the rules, so there's a lot of areas where
Yeah.
universities need to make their own judgment and use their discretion. So it can mean that it's very unpredictable for expat families when they apply. You don't really know where you stand in terms of what fees you end up receiving from the university. So we can advise families to make sure they understand before they apply, whether they are in line for home fees, and we can also support them to try and maximise their chances of getting home fees when they do actually apply. As I said before, the home tuition fees are capped by the government, and this is because there is a lot of government funding going towards home students. So this offsets what the universities are able to charge in fees. So it helps to subsidise the cost of delivering the course to those students for the universities.
Yeah.
So the home fee is currently around £9,500 per year. But if you don't get assessed as a home student by the university, you will be charged overseas fees. And there's no government funding going towards overseas fee paying students. So universities are passing the full cost of delivering the course to those students in the form of tuition fees. So they are much higher than what you would pay as a home student. Typically, this could be over £20,000, over £30,000 per
Gee,
year.
per
And if you want
year.
per year. And if you want to study a medical degree or other clinical courses like dentistry or veterinary courses, it can be up to £70,000 per year.
Times what, 6 or 7 years?
Yeah, that's it. For some medical degrees, it can be 6 years. So we're talking, close to £500,000
Oh my
in
gosh.
tuition fees.
And actually, I think it's I think a lot of people don't actually realize how big a difference or the disparity between getting home status and paying home fees and obviously not paying those fees. I mean, even on a non-medical base, did you say £20,000, 20 to £30,000?
Yeah, that's it. So most courses now, you are going to be paying perhaps over £20,000. There are university courses in the UK you can study for less than that as an overseas fee-paying student,
Yeah,
but the overseas fees, there is no cap. So universities are able to increase these fees year on year. We do see that. Obviously, universities are accounting for inflation. So each year, these overseas fees will rise. And now we know that the home fees are also going to rise year on year as well. So what
yeah,
does mean that if you are planning to send your child to university in the UK and they're starting in 3 or 4 years' time, the fees that you'll see at the moment are going to increase. So you're going to be paying more. So it's really crucial to plan ahead and be prepared for this, because as you say, you don't want to get that sort of nasty shock when you apply and you only just realise that there's a complication or there's a technicality which means you're going to end up paying much higher tuition fees.
yeah,
And like you said before, the rules mean that if you are an expat, if you are living outside of the UK, there's going to be uncertainty about your eligibility. And the residency requirement refers to ordinary residents. And this is a very complicated concept. It's not the same as ordinary residents that might be defined in the tax rules
yeah.
and might be
Where there's
defined.
clear dates and times to be in the UK. What is it, 90 days,
Yes, that's
182
it.
days?
Exactly. There's some more clear parameters around that. It's helpful to know where you stand from a tax perspective, but this is not the case when it comes to the university fee status rules. So there's really no further guidance for this, both for applicants, both for the families who are applying, and also for the universities that need to make this assessment. So it is left to the universities to, you know, make their own policy in this respect and interpret the rules how they see fit. So, an accepted legal definition of ordinary residence is having a regular, habitual mode of life in a particular place for a settled purpose. So, that's not particularly helpful to know, again,
Not
where you
really.
stand as an expat.
Yeah,
This is where we can come in and really help explain it. But it does, encompass all kind of aspects of life. So financial aspects, property as well, your employment, your travel pattern. Whether you go back to the UK and you spend time there. All of these things play a part in what the universities will be looking at, and so you need to make sure that you are preparing and covering all these aspects.
yeah, because I think that sort of, when you say grey area, that might put some people off, but I think grey areas are not necessarily bad if you know how to navigate a grey area, right? If you're sort of bumbling into it, oh, well, we go back to the UK every year for Christmas and, the kids have got bills going to our grandmother's house, so it looks like we live there. I mean, that's probably not that good, but if you understand how to navigate said grey areas and you have guidance and support like any of these things, then I think you can use it to your advantage because you know what sort of people are looking for. And I guess I know you can't say in whole, right, here are 5 things that every university will accept, but are there sort of a few things on a scale from, strong to not so strong that would work in your favor in terms of
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, for sure. And this is the thing is a lot of people make assumptions about their eligibility that may not be correct. There's a lot of myths and misunderstandings about
Yeah,
the rules and what you need to show. And this is where, like you said, because it's very much a grey area, you can't really make generalizations about eligibility. You can't really make generalizations about your chances of success because your friend down the road or you're at your workplace or at your school, whether or not they achieve home fees really doesn't have any direct bearing on what your chances are going to be. So we get that a lot, that people read into, oh, my friend got home fees. That's great. I'm definitely going to get home fees as well.
yeah,
Or, oh, they didn't get it. I've got no chance of getting it. And that could be completely wrong. Um, like you said, because it's such a grey area, it does open up the possibility that people with a varying sort of strengths of their cases could still have success when they apply to university, because it will depend very much on which university you apply to and what their individual policy is as well. So
yeah,
it's always good to make sure you investigate this thoroughly and think ahead. Um, in terms of what you need to show, there's kind of two main pathways. And again, I did just say that you can't generalize, but if I do
that's
generalize
okay.
in this
Yeah,
point, two main pathways for a British or Irish family living abroad. So first, if you can show this ordinary residence in the UK, that even though you live on a day-to-day basis outside of the UK and you go to work and you go to school somewhere else, if you can show that you've got a regular habitual life in the UK, it's a settled purpose for your life there,
yeah,
then universities should consider giving you home fees on that basis. So this is about showing, first of all, travel pattern back to the UK. So you do need to actually physically spend time in the UK, and it needs to reflect that it's your ordinary home and that you go there often enough and for long enough to have this everyday life there.
yeah,
And universities are also going to look to see that you have a home base address in the UK. So, this permanent family home address that you can point to and say, well, this is my particular place where I have a settled life. And it
yeah,
could be a property that you own yourself as a family,
yeah,
but it could also be grandma's house you mentioned before. It could be a relative's address that you are using as your permanent home address in the UK. And certainly that could be accepted by many universities. So having ticking those boxes is a very good basis to show that you might be able to have this ordinary residence. And after that, you still need to show that you have this settled life in the UK. So you've got things in the UK that people who normally live here would have. These habitual everyday things. So many expats living around the world, that they haven't cut all their ties from the UK. They still maintain ties and connections, and it's really trying to show the strength of those ties and connections back. And
yeah,
that's a big part of what our service would work through with these people. So this is where it's going to look different for everyone. Again, you can't just say, "Oh, my friend had this. I'll just go and get that, and then it will be fine." And
yeah,
that's not really how it works. But the second pathway to getting home fees, if perhaps you are not able to show the ordinary residence, the rules also have a provision to say that you get home fees if you are just temporarily absent from your place of ordinary residence, specifically for some temporary employment. So this is to cover those, circumstances where um, a parent might get posted or seconded or assigned by their employer to go and work in an overseas office. There might be certain types of jobs that mean you have to be working outside of the UK, diplomatic jobs, military jobs, those kind of things. You're working for charities or things like that. where you are inherently based outside of the UK, the rules say, well, you shouldn't be penalised for that. If you're temporarily absent and the only reason your absence is because you're doing this particular job, then again, universities should consider giving home fees on this basis. So this could be the argument that you would need to make to the universities for your specific circumstances, and providing evidence to show that this is a time limited period of employment. But of
Yeah.
course, here it gets very grey as well, because there is no definition of what temporary is. So, what is temporary? Whether is it 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? There's no guidance on this for us as well. So each university is going to make this decision on a discretionary basis.
Have you ever seen a situation where you have two similar looking cases going for the same university and then one of them's been knocked back and one hasn't? Or if you've got equally strong cases, they all tend to go through? Or is it sort of so discretionary that actually like I'm thinking, when you get a valuation done on a house, one valuer might value it at this amount, and another valuer who woke up on the wrong side of the bed and got rained on might say,
Yeah.
actually, no, it's not worth anywhere near that, just because
Yeah,
it's, you know,
absolutely. I think that's a good analogy because, yeah, it is a very, such a discretionary, such a subjective decision that equally two people looking at the same case might come to a different outcome, even if they're looking at the same property, they've got slightly different views on it. Exactly the same with this type of case, because they're looking at so many aspects, so many parts of someone's life that, yes, it is quite common. Yeah, we do see that for sure, that, especially with, some of these larger universities, they're receiving thousands and thousands of
yeah,
applications. So they have very large admissions teams. So they have many people doing these assessments. And it could be that, the personal view of one person might be different to their colleagues sitting next to them. So
yeah,
absolutely, we do see that. It is unpredictable, like I said. So, we never know what outcome. Now, this does mean that it's important, again, to be well prepared and then go through the process. So every university does have an appeals process. So if you get an initial decision that's not in your favor, so if they initially say that you should get overseas fees, you should be able to appeal that and put forward the reasons to say, hang on a minute, I don't think that's right. I think I should get home fees.
yeah,
And now, universities generally, they have these internal appeals process because they want to have consistency. And we do see that usually we can have a good idea on a particular case, that if they might not get accepted in the first rounds with the first application, but through the appeals process, that should mean that the university is consistently applying their policy to all the
yeah.
cases. So that's definitely a big step that we always take, and we often need to take with the families that we support, is going through that appeals process. Because if we think that their case has been unfairly assessed or not in line with the policy, we should be able to get that resolved at the appeals stage. But certainly we've seen, when there's what we would consider to be a strong case with lots of compelling circumstances to be eligible, applying to different universities, it can have different outcomes.
Yeah.
This is where, again, being able to get that insight in advance of the application can be really helpful. Again, for the families we support, they value that
Yeah.
insight of our
So,
experience to know where they stand.
yeah, so you're not shooting in the dark and just hoping for the
Yeah,
best. I mean,
you're not going in blind, so you have some idea, and that can also be useful to know. You only get five choices, so you don't want to waste them. It
yeah.
can help shape the final choice of five to, again, maximize the chance of getting home fees.
And what then, say you've got someone that's looking to go to university in, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it may be. What are some of the things then that or maybe there aren't things that people can be actively doing. I'm thinking sort of, saving your tickets every time you fly back to the UK in a special folder to show that you do fly back regularly, or is there an evidence trail and things that you can be doing now passively so that when the time comes you don't go, oh crap, I haven't got any of this, I've got to go and another property analogy, when it comes to do your tax return at the end of the year, you've got to go
Yes.
and get all of your monthly statements, and if you were just a bit more prepared, that would be nowhere near as painful. So is there anything you can do to start teeing yourself up for success now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, preparation is key. And as you mentioned, you are going to need to have evidence to provide to the universities. Now, under the fee status rules, the formal assessment period of eligibility is the 3 year period before the start of the university course. So, again, universities are likely to be asking you for evidence to cover that full 3 year period because they want to make sure that you're eligible for that whole time. But actually, some universities and some aspects, they might ask you for evidence that goes beyond that 3 years. Now, the travel is one, especially where they often look at a longer period. They want to really get that idea of a pattern. It's a bit hard to see a pattern in only 2 or 3 years. So
Yeah.
some universities ask for 10 years of travel. So this is where, again, yeah, like you said, being organized and having that put to one side, put on a folder in the laptop, or available so that you're not running into problems at the time and scrambling around trying to find this evidence. At the time you're applying to university, when you're also trying to sit your final exams and do all these other things. So definitely keeping your evidence, those key things like I mentioned, so your travel, your links to the UK, your address in the UK. Now, the good thing is if you're thinking about this early enough, you do have the ability to, obtain eligibility. We do work with families where we say to them, look, I'm really sorry, but at the moment you won't be eligible for home fees because you don't meet the requirements. But
Yeah.
because you're not starting university for another 4 or 5 years, it means you can actually fix that. You can change that. You can obtain eligibility for that crucial 3 year period.
Yeah.
And this is where we would be able to point out where the weakness in their case is. So maybe they're not travelling back to the UK regularly. They need to increase that. We do have conversations with families where we say, well, you don't really have an available home base. You don't own any property in the UK. You don't have relatives in the UK that you can use as your permanent address. So it might be that families do need to purchase a property to be able to have this address that they can use for their ordinary residence for the required 3 year period before the start of the university course.
Then maybe some case studies, could we talk through sort of, obviously, I guess the information would be confidential, but, let's redact names and all of that sort of stuff, have, off the top of your head, have you got, yeah, maybe a sort of one case study where you've said to someone, actually, you're not quite ready and what that looked like, and then another case study where you worked with someone and they were ready because they'd done the right things or they'd shown that regular pattern. Because I think, certainly for me anyway, case studies and seeing things worked through helps me understand them a bit better. So if there's anyone else like that listening, it might help.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we get sort of all sorts of weird and
I
wonderful
bet, yeah.
circumstances, as you can imagine. The expat life. We know again, people don't intend to leave the UK and settle somewhere else, but it's very common that people say to me, "Yes, well, this is when I came to Singapore or Dubai or America." And it was for this job. It was for a couple of years, and that
10
was
years
15
later.
years ago.
Yeah,
And
classic.
we had no inkling that we'd still be here, and the the children will be finishing school. We just didn't anticipate that. So, of course, again, this is where people get caught out a bit. So, it is very common. A common scenario is people that have been living outside of the UK for many years, 10, 15, 20 years. We have supported families like that. In a lot of cases where the child has been born outside of the UK, they might not have ever lived permanently in the UK.
Yeah.
Again, that doesn't mean that they cannot be eligible. They can certainly still be eligible for home fee status. Now,
But I guess, sorry, not under the just the temporary posting angle. It's got to be under the regular way of life
yes,
angle.
exactly right. So this is where the chances of a family in that scenario, it might be low for them to be able to persuade a university that it's a temporary absence because of specific temporary employment. It could be possible, absolutely, because there is no definition of what temporary means. And
Yeah,
we've supported families in this scenario where they have been outside of the UK for over 20 years and they still have good claims for it to be temporary. So, like I said, some of those roles where inherently you're working outside of the UK. So, we've supported quite a few people who might work for the United Nations, perhaps UNICEF, or those types of organisations where they are posted around the world at different postings, and it's quite obvious that these are temporary things. So this again, you need to look closely at the exact circumstances of the role. So that could mean that they still have very good grounds to say, well, I should still get home fees because of this. It is only temporary, even though it's been quite a
a
long
long
period of
time.
time.
Yeah,
But yes, in those circumstances, we'd be talking to a family and saying, well, maybe your chances of getting home fees because of your temporary employment might be low, because it's perfectly reasonable for a university to make a decision that we don't think it's temporary any longer. It's been 20 years outside of
yeah.
the UK.
The kids were
Like
born
you
out of the
said, so then
UK.
you need to really focus on the requirements on that other pathway that to show this ordinary residence. And you really want to have a strong case there, because you'd be putting all your eggs in one basket for the universities to accept your case and be able to give you home fees. So this
Yeah,
is where you want to have a really compelling circumstances. So it might be that if a family do own their own property and they keep it vacant for their use, and each year they return home when circumstances allow, in school holidays when they've got time off from their work, they go back to the UK and they spend time as a family at their ordinary home in the UK. And that would be a fairly compelling basis, again, for
yeah.
universities to consider, okay, maybe they can show this ordinary residence in the UK. Now, perhaps a weaker case is we often get people saying, well, I don't have my own property, or perhaps I do own property in the UK, but that's rented out. I've got tenants living in that property, so I can't use that property as my home. So this is where we would look very closely at the case and see if there's any alternatives to show this. Like I said, relatives could be, but many people say, well, I stay at my friend's down the road, or and that might be a bit tenuous. You might have a very low chance of convincing a university that you still have this ordinary residence. It's your home. If it's a friend's house, maybe less likely the universities will say, well, that can be your family home as
Yeah.
well. So in that case, we might say to the parents, you really need to strengthen your case, because otherwise your chances will be very low. So this would be about, can you purchase a property for your use? And
And then
as
actually going back and using it. Sorry to interrupt.
exactly, yeah. That's you do need to do that. So having a property, like I said, a property that is rented out is unlikely to be useful. But
Yeah,
as you probably know, you're probably having these conversations as well with families. They are thinking about, perhaps where the child will live when they go to university. They are looking at long-term investment into the UK property market. So this can also, be of a big benefit for them to do all this preparation, all this planning together with the preparation for the university application.
Yeah, because I think it's a bit of a misconception is that if you just own a property and you say that you own the property and you never actually go there, then that will show that you would qualify. But I've got a bit of a weird question. Or might not be weird. I don't know. Have you ever done any people that work in embassies and what are they called?
The High
I've forgotten the
Commissions.
word. Yes, yeah. They do they have to apply for home status fees, or because technically the High Commission is still the UK, are they classed as British resident, UK residents?
Yeah, no, it's not. As far as I know, no, I don't think there's that kind of, yes, British. Yeah, the embassy is often considered to be British soil, isn't it? But no,
Yeah.
I don't think that it's in that nature. But yes,
Okay.
certainly, if you are a diplomat, a
Diplomat.
diplomatic
That's it.
posting,
Yeah.
and certainly military posting as well. There are that they should be sort of special cases because that is quite clearly a temporary absence
Temporary.
for this specific employment. So certainly for military, the rules actually often specify that distinctly
It's
that there
quite clear
is
cut,
these
I guess.
factors. And certainly, I wouldn't expect a diplomatic family to run into too many problems with the university application. Again, the university should, quite clearly see that. But there might be nuance around here as well. So again, if a family was in the military and they were posted at a base around the world, but then they've left the military, but they've remained employed at that base as a contractor or something like that. Again, many employees at embassies and high commissions may be locally engaged employees, so they're not actually on posting. So again, those factors could mean that, yeah, it's not an automatic or straightforward case for them.
Working with yourselves, I think I'm a big fan of working with professionals in things. I mean, and I'm not just saying that for everyone that's listening, I do believe that, it's, if you don't understand something, it's much easier to go and get good quality advice from someone that does understand it and implement it that way. Because in this instance, it really is worth it, because what you pay to use your services is going to save you a lot in fees potentially. So obviously you've got that side of things is work with professionals, but then also you've got people that maybe aren't quite ready to take that step yet or are too far away and don't feel like they need to. So obviously having a chat with yourselves, but then what else can people do to start getting ready for this or start reading up more about it? How can people find out a bit more information over and above what we're talking about here and speaking with yourselves? Are there any other resources that you guys have got or any other places that people can go to start sort of, yeah, myself as an example, again, I like to read around things, get a base understanding and then go, okay, this is the course of action. So are there, what can people pull on to start building that knowledge?
Yeah, that's it, and I totally agree with you as well. Sort of getting that specialist advice is so crucial because, the same with property purchasing and property investing. There's simple mistakes can cost you big time, kind of thing. There's so much at stake here with the amount of money that we are talking about that you don't want to inadvertently scupper your chances here. So yeah, we do have a lot of resources, and this is where actually we have filled that gap because there wasn't a lot out there for expat families. There's not a lot of independent information that is going to be helpful for them. So we can provide that, and we have lots of useful resources on our website, so blog articles, and on our YouTube channel as well. We've got some really good explainer videos that, in layman's terms, help people understand that, will cut through the jargon so that you can really understand it from, your own perspective. Also on our website, we have what we call a fee status checker. And now this is the really best place to get started with all of this. And it's never too early to get started. So this fee status checker, it's a really simple, easy to use tool. It will only take a few minutes, completely free. You put in your details, answer a few yes or no questions, and then you'll get an automated response with a summary of your potential eligibility. So it will look at your exact circumstances and be able to tell you whether or not you do have any opportunity to be considered for home fees. And if you are an expat family and you're living outside of the UK, it will probably explain that there is going to be uncertainty about your case, because you tick one box in that you've got a British passport, but you are living outside of the UK. So that is where there's going to be uncertainty about whether or not you can meet that requirement. So this is a great place to start, especially perhaps for those that may not have the British passport yet. So if you do have other types of residency status or links to the UK, perhaps the student themselves is not British, but they might have a family member that is British. There are certain provisions in the rules that cover these. So again, this fee status checker will be able to identify if there is a pathway or not to getting home fees, and then it will include recommendations of next steps and introduce our further support that would be needed or relevant for them.
Well, we'll put a link to that in the show notes. I think that's what they're called. So if you're watching this or listening, you can click down and put a link to the fee status checker there as a starting point.
That'd be great. Yes, and we do lots of information for families as well. So we I travel around and go to many places. As you mentioned, I was with you last year in Kuala Lumpur, and to visit schools and talk to families. So we do live presentations. So do look out on our website. We also do regular live webinars online. So we have those that you can sign up to. Come and hear about it, ask questions, and get those questions answered for you as well.
So this is going out on today, if you're listening to this, is the 12th of November. It's a Wednesday. So Sam, where are you at the moment, and where are you over the next few weeks, so people can reach out and catch up with you?
Yes, I'm in Singapore at the moment. So I've got events in Singapore. I'm able to meet with people. So if you're in Singapore, I'm moving on to Hong Kong next week. From the 17th of November. Again, look out for events, the chance to come and speak to me about your case. And then I'll be in Phuket from the 24th of November. Again, there's lots of opportunities to come and find out more about fee status and home fee eligibility. I do regular trips, so I'm often in Dubai and in the Middle East, in Qatar coming up in January. The best thing is to hop on our website and you can see all our upcoming events and where you can come to find out more.
All right, Sam. Well, I think we'll leave it at that. Like I say, we'll put the link in the show notes down there somewhere, and people can reach out to you that way. And hopefully you can help some people that have been struggling with this, because it always amazes me, that you could be paying an extra 60 grand over 3 years or whatever it may be. So I think it's for sure worthwhile doing if you haven't looked into it yet.
Yeah, great. And thank you for having me on. It's so good to be able to talk about this and get this information out there for people who might need it and, might really benefit from looking at their case. And like I said, really look into it, because often if you're making assumptions about eligibility, you could be wrong, and you could be resigning yourself to the fact of paying high fees when in fact you should be getting the lower fees.
And we know what assuming does. It makes an arse out of you and me. So
That's it.
on that bombshell. Anyway, no, Sam, thank you very much. Lovely chatting again, and hopefully we'll catch up on some of your your upcoming trips.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you soon.